Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're going to be doing part 7, I believe, of our Jurassic World Evolution mod showcase. So we'll be taking a look at a bunch of different animals and a bunch of different reskins and remodels that people have been making. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a break over Christmas, but everyone seems to be getting back into it, and we eventually we'll move on to this next one. There's a little surprise coming in the next episode, part 8, so keep you hyped for that one. But today we've got a little bit more of our reskins and remodels. So we're going to be starting off with a couple accuracy models. We're starting off with Aransaurus. This was made by Dilo and Game Videos for Life, if you recognize them from the first Jurassic World Evolution modding scene. So they've come to the second game and they're giving us accurate Aransaurus. So we give a look at this wonderful guy. There's one over there we might have a look at. So look at this wonderful fellow. So this is Aransaurus, as we know, everyone's favorite late Cretaceous sail-backed iguanodontian. So we can see some of the changes that he's made here. We can see, especially on the feet. The feet, look a little bit mangled. They look a lot less like fingers and more like a hoof, but I think that might just be an issue with the UV or however they did it. But yeah, really nice. I really like how the main change that you can see here is the sail. So the Arano sail was quite rounded in the game, but here we can see it's reflects most reconstructions that we can see. It's almost like a straight up hump and then almost table at the top and then dives down. Even though that might not be how exactly it looked, that's what it kind of looks like on the fossil. Really nice. Also, we can see some changes to the legs, I believe. And the face, it looks less like a platypus, and well, it looks a lot longer, since Aransaurus is known from having this quite long face and a muscly neck and all that. For the inaccuracies, I feel like this is more an issue because of the game itself and using the Iguanodon rig that they made. Aransaurus didn't have very large forelimbs, so they were quite spindly almost, and most likely were bipedal, but it didn't seem to affect them much. They still had that kind of some spike going on there, like most iguanodontians did. But yeah, still really nice. I'm a really big fan of the sail, and also you can see this new color here, so we can see the different colors in the different individuals, this new pattern. The new pattern you can see here is almost like stripes and divots. I'm actually a really big fan of how this came out, especially around the neck. I think kind of that contrast of giving the bottom of the neck a lot of bright colors, it really draws your eye to it. I think that looks quite nice. And then you have this one that's patternless, but still has that bright neck. I think that brings a lot of attention. And all the different colors it applies to, I think that looks really nice. So we'll let them walk off and do their thing. So again, that was by Dilo and Game Videos for Life. And next, we'll let them move a little bit. And next, we've got something really cool. So this isn't necessarily an accuracy, it's more speculative. But if you guys know Jaserba, he's made lots of, across Planet Zoo and Jurassic World Evolution, made a lot of very weird and wacky mods. And I'm really glad he made something like this for Jurassic World Evolution 2. So we have got ourselves a funny looking, I will explain as we look through it, but we've got a really funny looking Pachyransaurus. So now look how funky this is. So we'll let them walk a little bit and then we can talk about the... So this is really funky. This is a woolly Pachyransaurus, and we'll tell where this idea came from because it's a very interesting like microcosm of the speculation that goes into what we know from dinosaurs. So from what we know from other relatives of Pachyransaurus, there was Dinosaur which was an early relative that had filaments very similar to feathers almost. Whether they're the same thing or something completely different, we really just don't have the fossils or the knowledge really to tell. They had a few filaments going down their tail here, And that kind of sparked the idea of what if we had ceratopsians and other ornithischians may have had this kind of filaments, or did they independently lose them, or did some of them have them? And that kind of brought up the speculation because you see things like woolly mammoths, they've got lots of hair, of course, they're woolly, and they're kind of like a woolly version of their relatives. So they thought that Pachyransaurus, living in a cooler climate of Prince Creek in Alaska, a lot of that would have been quite cold. Not as cold as a lot of people think, but did get quite cold. So people thought, as speculation, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have woolly Pachycephalosaurus? And I think it is a rather cool look. If you see the one in Prehistoric Kingdom, it's a very, very cool look. But if we want to go through the realism of the speculation of filaments like this, it's really only been seen on Psittacosaurus. We don't really have... We have pretty good skin impressions of animals such as like Triceratops, close relatives of animals like that, including Triceratops, I think Chasmosaurus. We have some, generally across ceratopsians, the later ceratopsians, we generally have some pretty good skin impressions, and none of them really show evidence of this kind of filamentous look here. Though it doesn't say they couldn't have one, like a species couldn't, it could have evolved independently, but it seems generally that the whole group may have been completely scaly. And another thing as well is Prince Creek, at the time, it was cold, but not nowhere near as cold as it was today. Like, most nights would be below freezing, if that. So not super, super cold. And just the virtue of being large and reptiles holding fat differently and potentially being endothermic and just being big may have helped keep themselves cool. They didn't really need to develop this extra woolly coat like mammoths or woolly rhinoceros would have. But I just still think it's a really cool idea of speculation and all that, and it's a really cool look as well. It doesn't? I have to admit, I just love the look of this. Having a woolly Pachyransaurus, it really gives a lot of texture. And this also means a lot for modding. That means we can have pretty good-looking feathers. I have to say, they are pretty good-looking in terms of how well-made they're made. That means that feathered dinosaurs are definitely coming in the future, and that'll be very, very interesting. I know Digital Duck has talked about maybe trying to get, when he gets some free time, to potentially get into modding for Jurassic World Evolution 2. So hopefully that happens, and yeah, a really, really wonderful mod. And I like how it looks on all the different skins as well. You can see this orange one, that looks really nice. Yeah, it'd be cool if we changed the woolly coat to fit the colors, but I assume that's just kind of how it is. But it still looks really, really nice. So we'll let these guys walk out of their the way. Let them walk and do their thing. So that was done by Jasurba, and our next one was another accuracy model. So let me make that super fast. So here we've got by Frana, or Frana, how do you pronounce that? We've got an accuracy remodel of Triceratops. Let's have a look at them walk past. So here's a look at our wonderful Triceratops. I actually really, really like this. So we can see the main changes are definitely in the head. You can see that the head really reflects much better what we know of Triceratops. It looks almost like a hybrid of Protoceratops and Horridus. You can see it's got these really, really long horns and this really, really large frill. This kind of stout face with this nasal horn. I think it looks a lot more trim. It just looks much more like a realistic Triceratops. I really like that. And then we can see our frill here, and it looks really, really nice. I really like how this one came out. Let's have a look at the body. I really like how the tail came out as well, nice and short. The body's been much more rounded to fit what we know of the general profile of Triceratops. And then we can see the feetsies and the legs. A little bit weird how it's posed, but that's just the animations. We can see the digits are wrong, of course. We've got the 5 digits when it would have only been 3, so these two wouldn't have nails. And then we can see the back here. That looks alright. Still too many nails, but other than that, pretty good. And in terms of the texture, We have pretty good impressions of Triceratops, and we know their kind of general scale pattern, other than the frill. We know that the bottom would have had very, like, rectangular croc-like scales, and then the top would have had hexagonal scales, pretty large ones as well, along with these quote-unquote nipple scales that kind of stick out very weirdly and gives a really interesting texture to Triceratops. And to talk about the frill here, we don't really know if this was more like a piece of just a solid, almost like board of keratin, or this could have been very scaly. They kind of went the scaly approach because that's what the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Triceratops has, but I think that looks really nice regardless. Got that really long beak. I think the skull itself, it just really screams Triceratops to me, so Vanani did a really, really good job with capturing the essence of Triceratops. I think he did a wonderful job. And look at all these wonderful different colors, so we'll have a look at these wonderful colors. Kind of came in twos, really. This one here looks like a darker one. Is it darker, or is it just head on the edge darker? And then these two brown ones, one with a pattern here. Really, really interesting. Really came out quite well. So let's let these guys run and do their thing. And next up, we've got something from our favorite guy, Johnny V. We know Johnny V. He does a lot of those really weird, wacky mods. He did like some Crudes mods for Planet Zoo. He's done some like Ice Age mods. He's really done a lot of very interesting things. He's really pushing the boundaries. And we have got a cute little dinosaur from him. We have got the Protoceratops on Minmi. Let's have a look at this little man right here. Now look how cute that is. Look at this little dude. I love this little Protoceratops. He's so awesome. How cute. And it fits surprisingly well on the Minmi, so that's really awesome. But yeah, here we've got Protoceratops, whose name means first horned face, or Protoceratops. And these guys were quite small ceratopsian dinosaurs, so related to the Triceratops and Pachyransaurus we just showed off. These guys were from the Upper Cretaceous, about the Campanian of what is now Mongolia, and they formed their own little early group of horned dinosaurs, or ceratopsians, where they were kind of in between these early forms that were small and they didn't really have large frills or horns. These guys were kind of in the middle. They were starting to get a bit larger. These guys were about sheep size, and their length was about 1.8 meters long, so quite a sizable animal. And they were developing these frills, but they didn't quite have these large horns yet. But yeah, these guys lived in Mongolia, so I think around the same time as Velociraptor, so they would have been prey. And very interesting about these guys as well is that these guys, we have lots of fossilized eggs of these guys, but originally they were thought to, well, we thought they were fossilized eggs of Protoceratops, but turns out they were from Oviraptor, and it was believed the Oviraptors that were found on top of them were trying to eat the Protoceratops eggs, but turns out they had been framed, and Oviraptor was actually a very, very caring mother that liked to brood over their eggs and sit on them, so that's really, really cool. And something about more recent about Protoceratops is that we've just found out real eggs, and it seems like these guys most likely had eggs that were more like the little eggs of snakes, so quite leathery, rather than eggs that you see in like sauropods or theropods or birds where that's much more solid. These guys had very leathery eggs, so it suggests, along with some early prosauropods having that the ancestors of most dinosaurs probably had leather eggs, and the hard shell eggs that you see in birds, sauropods, and some ornithischians evolved independently from each other. So that's very, very cool. And if we want to talk about some of the accuracies and stuff like that, I think he captured the frill quite well. And remember, this has got to fit on the Minmi rig, so it can't be too weird and extravagant. But I think the head's a little too long. It needs to be quite tall and deep for Protoceratops. Like you'd have horn there and then ooh, like that. But generally pretty good. Rounder body would be quite nice. A little bit rounder, but generally pretty good. A little bit thinner legs would have worked well as well. And the tail as well could be a little longer, and there was almost like a big almost in the vertebrae. There's a big, what would you call it? Lots of vertebrae that went up here and then came down here like that. So it's a good attempt, very, very nice, and fits remarkably well on the Minmi, I'll be honest. And you have to admit, look at this adorable little dude. Look how cute he is. A really, really wonderful little man. How could you not love him? And then we see all the ones over here. Looks like they're interacting. How cute. Adorable. So Johnny V, you did a wonderful job there. And now we get to move on. So next we've got another return of Dilo and Game Videos for Life. They made a little pack of all sorts of different species. It's a Paleo edit, so we're going to be starting off with the next Paleo edit. We have got Megalosaurus. So look at these wonderful guys. Megalosaurus, wonderful guys. So have a look at this one over here, and we can see some of the changes. We can see, compared to the one game, it really doesn't have these really big crests, and most likely didn't have that. But we can see a lot of the more general edits. I think the tail's been elongated. We can see the face has mainly had a lot of changes. Megalosaurus and other megalosaurs, such as like Torvosaurus, they had quite boxy faces, almost like pseudo-tyrannosaur faces, so you can see that quite boxy face he's got going on. But you can see the main difference is they didn't really have the binocular vision that Tyrannosaurus would have had. Really, really interesting. Generally just boxy and lithe. I know those kind of contradict, but I think you can get the feel of what I'm saying. Really bulky body, big feet, and I really like the arms. Really like how they did that. The claws look much nicer. One thing is that megalosaurs were also the ancestors of Spinosaurus. So you can almost kind of see that in there with the larger claw there and almost the longer snout. It's almost like becoming a Spinosaur. Really, really interesting animal. I think it came out really nice. There's not too much directly to say about it, but I'm really a big fan of this Paleo edit. Most of it's on the face. Got rid of those really kind of big, kind of awkward spikes, but I'm a really big fan of this. I love Megalosaurus. Fun fact about Megalosaurus, it was one of, if not the first dinosaurs discovered. And it was kind of like that and Iguanodon, and that kind of... People, how I imagined it through the centuries, they used to think of it as like a giant crocodile that could walk on two legs. Well, four legs, I mean. But then it evolved into, with better fossils and better understanding of extinct life, we came to this understanding of the animal with pretty good remains. So yeah, I think that's a really, really cool animal that he did, and really cool to show off. So we'll let them go off and do their thing, and then we'll have a look at the next one. So Dilo and Game Videos for Life also did the next animal here that we will cover. So we have got ourselves Quinsongosaurus. I'm sure you guys remember this guy. We've covered him before, but we will talk about him. We'll have a look at this one over here. Look at this wonderful guy here. So this is Quinsongosaurus. So this is a tyrannosaur that comes from Asia in the late Cretaceous, and is the only species known as Quinsongosaurus sinensis, and is a member of the Aleorhaenae. So this was a group of tyrannosaurs that were very, very interesting. They kind of went the opposite of your things like Tarbosaurus and Tyrannosaurus. These guys decided to go really lithe and really, really fast, along with its relatives like Aleorhaemus. Very, very interesting guys here. So instead of getting these big boxy bodies that Tyrannosaurs had, you can see these guys went the more lithe route. And you can see the very interesting skull it has, almost like a crest there, very long and designed. It looks like almost like a cheetah. It's really, really nice here. You can see that forward-facing vision that really helps Tyrannosaurs. You can see that there. Very good binocular vision. It's a very interesting characteristic of Tyrannosaurs. And then we can see these quite big arms and these wonderful long bodies. You can see this body's quite rounded, quite nice, and I think the tail's been extended a little bit. You can see that. I think it came out really, really well. I really like these paleo edits. They're not very huge edits, but I think they came out really nicely. So, Quinsongosaurus was estimated to be about 6 meters long, as is probably depicted about in here, and about 757 kilos, or a little under a ton. And these guys, as I mentioned, they're in the group Alioraimi, so related to animals such as Alioramus. So these guys would have been those kind of lithe, lean tyrannosaurs, and would have been earlier, a little bit earlier before things like Tetraphonius and Spinosaurus, kind of that group there, before leading into the group that became eventually Tyrannosaurus. And yeah, very, very interesting. And we can see it's got 2 fingers. Most Tyrannosaurs have 2 fingers, and you can see that there. It's almost a dead giveaway that it's a Tyrannosaur. And these really, really lithe feet and remind me of ostrich feet. I love this pattern. I think the patterns are new as well. I need to forgive these patterns I really, really like. I think that really gives it a lot of character. And these ones here I think came out really well. This like light blue and dark blue and grey is a really, really good combination, I'll be honest. I'm normally not a big fan of blue in my dinosaurs, but that blue comes in, and that red, that's a really, really nice skin, I'll be honest. I think it came out really well. So yeah, we'll let our theropods, our large group, kind of go off and do their thing. Let them speed off. So next we'll be looking at we've got all Spinosaurs from now on. So we've got a return of Wheat. We all love and know Wheat. He's done a remake of his Baryonyx. So I'm sure you guys will be very excited to see that. So let's open that up. So you can see some of the big changes here. Let's have a look at this one. Some of the major changes. It doesn't have the crocodile spikes. So it kind of reflects what we more know of dinosaur anatomy. They didn't really have these big crocodile-like spikes on them. This has much more flat and smooth, particularly pretty small scales. Came out quite nicely. It's got kind of this weird line there, but I'm sure if he really wanted to, he could make his own texture and make it look really, really nice. But yeah, it still looks nice either way. And we can see some of the changes compared. It's got a much more lean snout, instead of that big, almost alligator-like snout that the Jurassic World one had. Much leaner skull as well. Much bigger forearms. Baryonyx is pretty much famous for having these really, really big claws that they use to catch fish. These guys and other Spinosaurs were primarily fish eaters. That didn't mean they wouldn't eat the occasional dinosaur, but they were mostly adapted for eating prey that was quite slippery. So things like fish is obviously the best example for that. And we can see this quite rounded body and some edits on the legs. You can see that wonderful thigh. Wheat does all the really, really cool paleo edits, and plus Wheat's just a really, really smart cookie when it comes to getting this anatomy. He really puts in the effort to make it come out right, and I think he did a wonderful job, especially with these Baryonyx. He seems to have a thing for Baryonyx, and I can't complain. And you can see these wonderful feeties he's got. So he's really just done it, and it looks pretty much perfect. This is what you'd expect the real animal to look like. And I think it's really interesting that we can get that good with how well we know these extinct animals. And especially Baryonyx being a very, very famous dinosaur. The dinosaur from the UK and kind of very famous. And how dirty it was done in Jurassic World. It was given like this weird alligator snout and these tiny claws, which really didn't make it look like the animal at all. I think it's really nice that it was given justice by Wheat. So really, really nice. So we'll let them walk off and do their thing. So next we've got some more edits by Feilong. He's done a lot of all sorts of paleo edits. I think he's done the Pachycephalosaurus, but now he's done the Spinosaurus. So we're moving on to Suchomimus. So we'll let this guy walk off and do a little stand. So there's a little bit of a weird... But here we are. Look, that looks more nice. We can see those changes. The Baryonyx didn't really need too much changes, but I think it still came out rather nice. We can see the head's being quite leaned and thickened. Suchomimus is almost like that in-between between Baryonyx and Spinosaurus, who could be coming up if you guys have read the library thing. But yeah, this guy is really interesting as well. We can see that little crest there as well. Really thin linen, can't even speak right. Lithe and thin neck here, and these large claws, very similar to Baryonyx. Almost like this hump that's almost like something you'd see on Spinosaurus, and this really, really long tail really came out nicely. And Suchomimus is, yeah, as I mentioned, he's almost like that halfway, and quite big too. I think the largest estimates put him about 10 meters or so, so really quite a big animal. And really nice, and I love the patterns. I think the patterns haven't changed, but I love the patterns how they came out on this one. I like this one here. It's like orange, but it's got these lines here. Doesn't seem to like too many changes, because really it was pretty spot on, other than the crest and some tidies up around the head. I think it's pretty much spot on, and we can see it's also quite skinny, quite well adapted for potentially swimming, or potentially wading in the water as well. Very well adapted to that. Really came out nicely. Really awesome guy. So yeah, you can have a look at that. Not too much to say. You can see some changes at the body as well. It's just more rounded. It's a really interesting hump there. So yeah, really nice. So we'll let these guys walk off. And then we'll move on to our wonderful next animal. And we've got a lot to talk about him. We'll have to wait for these guys to do their little snuggle animation, which is quite cute, I'll be honest. So let's them run off and do their thing. So we have got now, everyone's favorite big bad, we have got Spinosaurus. So we all know this will be one of many Spinosaurus edits to come, but we have got this really interesting edit of this guy. So this was also done by Feilong, who did the Spinosaurid pack. We can see a lot of the major changes here, especially comes with the most recent evidence that we have of Spinosaurus. We can see a lot of the changes here. The sail's kind of been a little bit more flattened and rounded out like that, but we can see the major differences here is the tail. And if you guys follow me, I've mentioned this quite a few times, during I think 2020 we had a pretty interesting shake-up of Spinosaurus, where it seemed like it had a paddle-like tail, and that almost like blew people's minds as it was really adapted for swimming, and that really shows how well adapted it was. Even if it's the controversies, whether it's a pursuit predator or like a ambush predator similar to a crocodile, a lot of those debates stem from this, but it's really interesting that we're talking about and just how much we know more about this dinosaur because of how it changed just because we had the tail published. So it seems like it was very well adapted for swimming in water. Very interesting. Very large head as well. So we'll let this guy kind of stand up and then we'll talk about his legs. So if you guys remember the history, kind of from 2014 onwards, which was almost 10 years ago. That was like 8 years ago, I believe. That's wild. But we can see a lot of the changes here was Spinosaurus got much shorter legs than the 2001 kind of depiction or the thought of it. And it was almost looked like it was quadrupedal. Yeah. And we can see the arms have been greatly elongated as well. It's kind of hard to get that right on this rig. I wonder if anyone will try and port the Jurassic Park 1 mods. Not Jurassic Park 1. The Jurassic World Evolution 1 mods. Like, there was a couple very good Spinosaurus, like Digital Ducks or Cerberus one. That was like one of the last ones. That was really nice. But yeah, this is one of our first Spinosaurus Paleo edits. Really show off that really interesting tail. It'll be very interesting to see how well these other ones try to match up to this. Because Spinosaurus is just such an interesting dinosaur. I cannot get over how interesting it is, especially now it's like the kind of one of the first proven semi-aquatic, non-amphibian dinosaurs. It's just such a cool animal, and then we can see the skull has changed as well. A little bit more leaner and meaner, and with a little crest there to better reflect Spinosaurus. And I think I love the texture on the new model as well, so it came out really nice. So now he's going to go off for some food. So yeah, I think this would be the perfect place to end. We've already talked about our wonderful animals. So this is it for part 7. So yeah, I I really hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.